You are now locked into the Red and Blue Rivalry podcast, the podcast where we talk all things San Francisco 49ers and Dallas Cowboys.
My name is Eric Hernandez, and I'm repping for the faithful.
And never say I'm a bandwagon fan because I'm still repping it for America's team, man.
Yeah, and you know what? You got heart for that, man. I'll give it to you for that.
That's all I ask. But, now that the Cowboys have dropped to 2-5 on the season, still technically only a half game out of first place and winning the division in the NFC East.
Wow.
Now it's time to look at, hey, are the Cowboys going to try to win this thing and gear up towards winning the division that is the NFC least? Or are we playing for 2021? As an outsider, I do want to ask you first, what do you think the problem is and what do you think they should do?
I think the problem is cultural. And I mean, at this point, it doesn't really matter, even if they win the division, because it's like you cut off a limb, but the problem is cancer. It's like, yeah, that limb that was bad is gone, but it's in the blood, and I think it's in the blood of the Dallas Cowboys. So outside of big things, and maybe we'll get to them as the season goes, we'll see how this team fares. I think that the fact that they were willing to sell is like cutting off pieces because they know they have to get rid of some of these body parts. They know they have to get rid of certain things because they just aren't what they thought they were when the season started.
Right.
You know?
Cowboys traded Everson Griffin for a conditional 6th-round pick to the Detroit Lions. So Detroit, like we said earlier, they're on a 2-game winning streak. They're looking to try to make a run at things over there in the north and get into the playoffs, that 7th spot I'm sure they're eyeing. And the Cowboys, their only hope is to win the division. But like I said, at this point, I think, you hear that Dontari Poe's on the trading block. You hear Daryl Worley's on the trading block. Man, those guys aren't worth anything.
No.
I mean, who's going to give you anything for those? I wouldn't even give a 7th-round pick for those guys.
No.
They're not worth it. They put out bad tape for 7 weeks. You think other teams don't have access to that tape? You know what I mean? It's crazy. You're fooling yourself.
The only way, if the goal is just to trim some of this is one thing, but if the goal is to try to rebuild, then they're going to have to trade guys that they hold valuable.
Yeah, and you hear that several offers have been given to the Cowboys regarding Michael Gallup, where the Cowboys are rich at wide receiver. You have CeeDee Lamb, you have Amari Cooper, Gallup. I mean, even the other receivers on that roster are still making plays.
Yeah, that number 11,
Wilson,
I think.
Cedric Wilson. I mean, he makes plays here and there when he gets his chances. So there's riches at the receiver position, and the cupboard is bare just about everywhere else right now in Dallas.
Yeah, and I think that I understand why they got CeeDee Lamb, but at the same time, you for receiver, you just need one or two, in my opinion. As far as your go-to guys, you should be able to scheme your third one open, or your third one should be able to be open just because he's going up against the lesser corner. So when you go on a team that, needed more defense or needed more draft picks to fill out their roster, and you went and got a wide receiver, and now I don't think all three of these guys are on the opening day roster for 2021 because I think you have to get rid of one. And if Gallup can get you that first-round pick, I think you do it. If I'm on the outside and I sit there and say, okay, I would have preferred getting rid of Amari Cooper only because I thought he would have given you the higher value. But if it's Gallup and you walk in with Cooper and Lamb and you rebuild your offensive line, which has to be priority number one in the offseason, and I think that's why you have to be sellers because even if you win this division, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, I mean, has it been reduced to just getting stomped out by the Bucs or the Saints?
Yeah, I mean, that's your best case scenario.
Yeah.
Is getting stomped out by the Bucs or the Saints in the wild card round.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's nothing pretty, and that's nothing to go brag about. But yet, that still is goal number one each and every season for each and every team. Go out and win your division.
Yeah.
Because after that, anything can happen. But the sad part is this team has been mauled by injuries, and I think, frankly, has just given up on their coaching staff. And that's another thing, what's the coaching staff going to look like in 2021? A lot of people are thinking McCarthy has got to be back for a second year, but guys like Nolan and maybe the defensive backs coach, that whole defensive side of the ball, I doubt you see them back in 2021.
And if that's the case, I mean, then like what can you got rid of Emerson Griffin, but what can you do otherwise because you don't know what scheme you're running. Because if you get rid of Nolan, maybe you go back to a 4-3. Maybe you go back to maybe you hire Dan Quinn. You know, and you go back to that scheme that you were pretty much running prior. You know, that kind of cover
Very
2, cover
similar.
3, where you put DeMarcus Lawrence back on the line and he's rushing, and you have Aldon Smith. And I look at that team and I think that in that division you have a chance to rebuild and still compete because that division is still it's got some issues. So my thing would be if you can turn guys that you just don't think are going to be there or you don't think are going to be beneficial in the long run into even 5th and 6th round picks. As a Niners fan, Kittle was a 5th round pick.
Right. You never know.
Or, you know what, maybe there's a guy that you want and he's fallen to the 3rd round or the 4th round and you're like, man, this guy can play. You know, hey, we have an extra 6. Now we can move up because we got rid of somebody.
Yeah.
So my question for you is this. If you could pick one player on that roster, who could you see the Cowboys parting with that would give you the maximum amount of value? Like, okay, if we had to get rid of this guy, he's got to be talented, but he can give us enough back to rebuild a spot on this roster. 2, who would you get rid of just to get them off the roster for the culture of the team?
I think if you're talking value, I think you have to talk to the other 31 teams in the league, and the offers are being sent for Gallup.
Yeah.
You know, that's what's going to net you a 1st or 2nd round pick. You know what I mean? It's right there. Nothing else on this roster really is outside of the untouchable pieces. And Dak's not even signed. We can't even trade him.
No.
So, you know, that's all got to be worked out. I don't think anybody's trading for Zeke right now. Just the way he's playing with the fumbles and issues like that. So I think it is one of the receivers, and it's probably Michael Gallup because he's playing on the rookie deal. So teams want that. Teams can fit that under their cap. Anybody. There's more teams that are able to take that contract on. As far as who would I like to just see off the roster, I think Dontari Poe's just a waste of space. I see him on his back all the time. Yeah. He's just not a good player anymore. Yeah. And they talk about, he's a Pro Bowl type defensive tackle, but when was the last time he made the Pro Bowl? Like 2014, 2013?
Yeah.
It's been a while. He has not been good for a solid 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, there's a famous Cowboy fan on Fox Sports who always will tout Pro Bowls, and I think we know Pro Bowls aren't what they used to be.
Yeah.
And he's touting Pro Bowls like it was last year when it was many, many years ago. If a team called you up and said, we'll give you a 4th round pick for Jalen Smith, would you do it?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes. With that contract, just to get out from under that contract, yeah, I think you do it.
So, I think the trade deadline's a week away. Do you want to see more pieces traded away? Or do you want to just hold it together and see what happens?
I don't think you can hold it together because whether you want to blame players, whether you want to blame coaches, this team has got consistently worse and worse as these weeks go on. You have to change something up no matter what. Whether you're trying to tank or you're not trying to tank, you just cannot put this product on the field and expect these fans to be excited about this product. And that's why, I'm sorry to say, but I cannot lay this pile of shit on anybody else's door but Jerry Jones.
Yeah, and he's the man that has to pull the trigger. Now, do you think my last question, do you think he
will fire himself as GM?
No.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Do you think he will be a seller? Do you think he looks at this season and says, okay, I got to get rid of some talent. We're not what we thought.
In week 6, Jerry Jones was on the Dallas radio, 105.3 The Fan, I believe, and said, we're more likely to be buyers than sellers. But I believe that this Washington Redskins loss sobered him up real fast. And I think now he's more than likely going to be sellers before the trade deadline.